Hello. My name is Charlie from the Way Biblical Fellowship. And this week's Torah portion is Eikev. And this week we looked at the covenant with Abraham, the promise of land and the promise of his seed. And we looked at the importance of remembering and not forgetting. And we looked at a very important question. What does the Lord our God require of us? And I hope you enjoyed the Torah portion. I've really enjoyed this parsha. I loved just reading it and sitting and meditating on it, and I hope you'd enjoy it as much as I have. Okay, thank you. Right, Eikev. So still in Moshe giving his speeches and everything else. Hence the picture of Moshe looking quite cool there with his stick. When are you going to bring your stick on a walk? You too could look cool like Moses. Right. Do you like a good read? I do. This is a quote from C.S. Lewis. You can never get a cup of tea large enough or a book long enough to suit me. Thought that was quite cool. And I come across this picture which just tickled me. There you go. Parsha Eikev Devarim 7:12 to 11:25 is a great read. I recommend making a cup of tea, getting in a quiet place and having a fine old time. I've really enjoyed reading it. I just think it's cool. It's got loads of bits that make you stop and think and go, wow. It gets my thumbs up. I looked at that and I thought, wow, when I was a kid, I never thought I'd look like that. What happened? We'll move on. The 46th parsha begins like this. Wherefore it shall come to pass if, and the word is Eikev, where we get the parsha's name, ye hearken to these judgments, the word is Shema, and keep and do them, that Yehovah thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he swore unto thy fathers. It's interesting to point out the appearance of a standalone Aleph Tav in the same verse. Okay, the standalone Aleph Tav appears in peculiar places throughout the scriptures. It points to the Messiah who declared that he was the Alpha and the Omega. In Hebrew, this is the Aleph and the Tav. And when I was going through this, it reminded me of probably my favourite story of a prayer meeting ever. You know, there's a bloke in a prayer meeting, I got told, and we know him. And he's praying away, and they're all praying away. And he's saying, oh Lord, you are the greatest. We love you, Lord, bless you. You are the Alpha and the Romero. He completely got that one wrong, didn't he? I don't know. He's the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Considering this implication, the first part of Devarim 7:12 would read, then it shall be because, Eikev, you listen to Shema Yeshua. That's how it would read. Eikev is an unusual Hebrew word used in this context, as there are other words for because and if in Hebrew. The Hebrew word Eikev in this phrase is difficult to translate into English. If you want a literal translation, it refers to the heel of a foot. And the use here in the Torah is a Hebrew idiom, a figurative way of saying on the heels of, which is an English idiom for following as a result of the consequences or the reward. It can also be translated as footprint.
Where's the Aleph in the top?
In the, let me put it back. There.
What does it come before? What's it pointing to?
Oh, it comes after if you hearken to.
Right,
Okay. Interestingly, the parsha ends Thus, it says in 11, 24 and 25, every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours upon the land that you shall tread upon. So it's talking again about your footprint. And people who go through this parsha always ask people to ask themselves, what footprint do you leave behind? And what impact do you have on the places and the people that you come into contact with? What kind of an impact do you make? Okay, the name Eikev shares a root with the patriarchal name Yaakov. What many people do not realize is that the word Eikev is also the same word used in Genesis 3:15, which is the first messianic prophecy spoken directly by Yehovah in the garden, in which Yehovah prophesied to the serpent as follows: he will crush your head and you will strike his heel. Okay, 2 times Eikev is used in relation to hearkening to Yehovah's voice. Okay, the binding of Isaac, that relates to Yehovah's promise to Abraham regarding seed. When it's used, hearkening. It says, in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Eikev, thou hast obeyed my voice. And now we get the promise of the land made to Abraham. It's Deuteronomy 7:12 again. It shall come to pass, if Eikev ye hearken to these judgments. So we've got the seed and the land, because this speech Moshe is given is all about going in to possess the land. So Yehovah promised to give Abraham the tools to carry out his mission. The tools were a people or a seed and a land. The mission was to be a light to the nations. That was basically the nature of his covenant. It says in Genesis 18:18 to 19, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know that he will command his children and his household after him, that they shall keep the way of Yehovah to do justice and judgment, that Yehovah may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. He is to become a model nation, and it's all based on his obedience. Genesis 26:4-5, it says, I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thee thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed, the word is actually Shema, it comes from my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Genesis 17:6-8, if he is obedient, he will get 2 things. He will get seed and land. These are the tools to carry out his mission, which is to be a light in a dark world. It's all part of Yehovah's plan of redemption. Probably chosen because he was going to teach the Lord's ways to his children. They were going to grow up as his people, showing how the Lord would have people live, and they were going to be blessed and be a light to all the nations. Now, he says, I will establish my covenant between thee and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. So on the heels of Shema'ing, hearkening to Yehovah, Abraham gets the seed in the land. They're not so much rewards as tools for his mission. Israel was supposed to be a light to the nation. They messed up, and rather than bringing glory to Yehovah's name, they profaned it. They were stiff-necked in disobedience, and so they were exiled from the land. We are Israel. We are supposed to be a light to the nations in all the places that we've been scattered. They failed to be a light as a nation, and the Lord scattered them, and even that's part of his plan of redemption, so that where we would be a light to the people around us. Isaiah 42:6 says, I, Yehovah, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and will give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. We're supposed to lead people to Yehovah and bring glory to his name. We are to be imitators of Yeshua and walk as he walked. John 8:12 says, then Yeshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. And this parsha is all about being a light, and it's all about life. Matthew 5:14-18, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy them, but to fulfill. Verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, One jot or one tittle shall in no ways pass from the law till all be fulfilled. There's always a link between being a light and following the Torah, following all of the Lord's ways. Being a light and Torah is inextricably linked. The good works we are called to do are not showy religious acts or do-gooder deeds. They are the mitzvot. They are walking according to his judgments and his hukim, his statutes. It means keeping the Sabbath and all the other feasts. It means wearing tzitzit. It means his will, not yours. It means loving one another, and it means looking out for the stranger, the poor, the widow, the orphan. It means loving Yehovah as he asked to be loved, not as we think he should be loved. It means walking in Torah is how we bring glory to his name. Ephesians 5:5-9. For this ye know that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous, who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Who is an idolater? Somebody who goes after another god, puts anything before the Lord. That includes their own version of who they think God should be. Let no man deceive you with vain words. That's kind of saying, people will try to deceive you with vain words. Don't let them. For because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. For ye were sometimes darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. The fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth. What is the truth? It is his Torah. You want to know what the fruit of the Spirit is? It's found in all goodness. And what's righteousness? It means doing divine law. This is all telling us the same thing. That if we want to be children of the light, we walk in his ways. So you ask yourself, what kind of a footprint are you leaving? Are you a light? Do you impact people? Do people look at you and go, wow, what is going on? Do they see somebody who walks in light, or do they see somebody who walks in darkness? Let's see how Yehovah describes what has happened with his people and what will happen. Perhaps we will clearly see our need to repent. Ezekiel 36. Moreover, the word of Yehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman. Wherefore I poured out my fury upon them, for the blood that they shed upon the land, and for the idols wherein they had polluted it. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doings I judged them. So they failed to be a light to the Lord. When they entered unto the heathen, whither they went, they profaned my holy name, when they said to them, These are the people of Yehovah, and are gone forth out of his land. It does make me cringe sometimes when I think people look at what is classed as Christianity, and they look at it and they go, Christians? That's what it's all about. I just think, oh dear. What do people think of when they think of Christianity? A dead, out-of-touch religion full of dull, judgmental fools that like to live like the world, except on Sunday mornings when they bore each other for an hour or so, going through the motions of some routine whilst trying to look pious. That's maybe what some people think of Christianity. Or perhaps they think it's this. A bunch of hypocrites that live like the world and sing about a holy God. People who chase after experience and follow feel-good celebrities, not because they speak the truth, but because they speak a positive message about living a life of sin. Is that what they think when they think of Christianity? It says, doesn't it? The people, when they said to them, These are the people of Yehovah, they profaned my holy name. It's been profaned, hasn't it? Really, really, really badly. In all kinds of different ways. But then the Lord says this, For I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the heathen, whither they went. Therefore say unto the house of Israel, Thus saith Yehovah Adonai, I do not do this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which ye have profaned among the heathen, whither ye went. I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them, and the heathen shall know that I am Yehovah, saith the Lord God, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. So how will YHVH sanctify his great name? It says, "For I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes. You shall keep my judgments, and you shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God." See the link between sanctifying his great name and his people walking in his statutes and keeping his judgments and doing them. To bring glory to Jehovah's name, to be a light, means to be led by the Ruach HaKodesh and thereby to walk in the Torah. 2 Timothy 3:16-17 says, "All scripture is given by inspiration of God. It is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works." These are the good works. When it says they will see your good works and give glory to the Lord, it's not talking about you going around handing out, chewing gum to people with smelly breath or money to people who need money. It's talking about following his Torah and walking in his ways. They're the good works. The pathways of life upon which YHVH invites his bride to walk hand in hand with him are paths of righteousness for his name's sake, ways of pleasantness, all of which lead to peace. Proverbs 3:17 and Psalm 23:3 says, "He restores my soul, he leads me in the paths of righteousness." Why? For his name's sake. For the sake of his name. If you want to bring glory to the Lord, you're not going to do it by going out and trying to be the most, loveliest person in the world, and do good things and make a big show of religious acts. You do it by following his righteousness, by walking in his ways. That's how you bring glory to his name. And it brings life. Walking in the Torah brings life. Who doesn't want a bit of life? I am amazed at seeing life in creation lately. That's taken in the Bald Garden in Royden Park. And I was looking at the leaves and go, look at this size of them. This is insane. Because I saw that about 3 months ago and there was nothing there. But then there's this life. It's just like, wow. And I look at hanging baskets and they're just frothing over with all this greenery and flowers all going, look at me, I'm beautiful. I'm thinking that's all come from this little lump of dirt and a little life. And that, it's just amazing, isn't it? Somebody just threw some seeds down and then all of a sudden, it's just like, I don't know, what the Lord's created just shouts, it's great to be alive, life's brilliant. The Lord says you follow the Torah, it means life. How could you want to live in a world obsessed with death and a culture of death? Life is so incredible. Romans 6:22-23. And now being made free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruit unto holiness, and the end, everlasting life. Wow, I like that. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Yeshua HaMashiach our Lord. So sin, which is transgression of the Torah, leads to death. Torah leads to life. The Lord wants us to have eternal life. So Deuteronomy 7:12. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if you hearken, if you shema these judgments, and keep them and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. And he will love thee, and bless thee, and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb, and the fruit of thy land, thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil, the increase of thy kind. It's all about life, isn't it? Life. And the flocks of thy sheep in the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. So, just have a think about it for a second. He will love thee, he will bless thee, and he will multiply thee. That's just ridiculous, isn't it? This is the creator of all things saying, you know, the instructions that I've given you, just follow them. Just do them. It will be life to you. I will bless you. I will love you. I will multiply you. The Hebrew verb or English Bibles translate as love is ahav. To ahav literally means to pant after with desire for increasingly meaningful and frequent interactions and expanding maximal levels of intimacy in all appropriate forms. That's what the Lord feels about us. He wants to be close to us. He loves us. The first biblical usage of the Hebrew verb ahav is in Genesis 22:2. In that verse, Yehovah uses ahav to describe the nature of Abraham's deep feelings of closeness to and affection for his son Yitzhak. This is a love that involves the eternal intertwining of destinies. It's a matter of covenant connection. So that's the first use. You ever think about that? Especially people who've got kids and how precious they are to you. Just ever think, wow, okay. The next uses of ahav in Torah is found in Genesis 24:67. There the Torah uses the Hebrew word ahav to describe Yitzhak's passion for his new bride Rivka. This is more than the eros attraction of a man for a woman. Again, this is a matter of intertwining of destinies in eternal covenant connection. Living Waters says this: from these two usages we can see that the Hebrew verb ahav refers to a passionate, deep-seated kind of love one feels for someone who represents the promise of the fulfillment of one's deepest desires. Abraham longed 100 years for a son and heir and suffered much heartbreak in the course of his longing. Yitzhak was the fulfillment of his dream. He ahaved him, no holds barred, holding nothing back. And then Yitzhak had spent 40 years alone and felt especially alone after his mother Sarah's death. Rivka captured his heart. She became the fulfillment of his intense desire for a bride. He ahaved her as the apple of his eye, and his soul was bound up with her. So this is the same word that's used to describe what the Lord will feel about us. So when Yehovah says he will ahav us, therefore, it's no small thing. The love of the Creator of the universe is much, much more than a religious cliche. His promise to ahav us means he is committed to both see and cultivate in us and invest such resources and energies as are necessary to bring forth from us the ultimate companion for which he has longed throughout eternity. It means he will rejoice over us and dote on us and consciously choose his relationship with us as his favourite and most fulfilling relationship. It means he will aggressively pursue communion, fellowship and constant interaction with, and to thereby seek to form a deeper binding bond with us, preferring our company over that of any other people. That's just nuts, isn't it? That the Lord, occasionally in your life you just get overwhelmed by the sense of the love of God, don't you? And you just think, wow. And then it's just so humbling because you just think of who he is, and then you just can't help but think that you don't deserve it at all. But he's amazing, isn't he? Romans 8:38-39. I'm persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Messiah Yeshua, our Lord. Now, the word our English Bibles translate as bless is barach. Barach means to release from restrictions and limitations. To barach someone or something means to infuse the object of blessing with unlimited potential and empowerment. Yehovah greatly and jealously desires for you to break free of the world's limitations and restrictions and walk in his abundant blessings. He wants that for you. He wants you to be blessed. People have this idea, don't they, of the Lord as some, don't do that, don't do this, stop it with it. It's not like that. It's like that. I love you. I really love you. I want you to be blessed. I want you to be free of all that stuff that's holding you back. I don't know. Multiply. And this is for people probably more so online. Do you ever feel alone in your Torah walk? I know that there's some people who do. Do you ever hunger for community and fellowship and a sense of common purpose? The Hebrew verb our English Bibles translate as multiply is a form of the Hebrew verb root rabah, and this means to become many, to become numerous, and to multiply. So that should encourage people who feel completely alone. It won't be the case always. It says, thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female barren among you or among your cattle. It's all talking about life. And the Lord will take away, the word is surah, from thee all sickness, and then that expression is choli, however you pronounce it, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt which thou knowest upon thee, but will lay them all upon them that hate thee. So let's have a look at this expression. The Lord will take away from thee all sickness. it's important for us to look at these two expressions. The operative Hebrew verb sir means to peel back or off or turn away something that is in place. And the Hebrew phrase kol choli, usually translated in English Bibles as all sickness, actually means all affliction, calamity and sadness. Yehovah is not saying his beloved will never suffer sickness or calamity. He's not saying his people will never be brokenhearted. The promise Yehovah is making is that when we do experience negative things like this in the course of our lives and relationships, he'll never leave us alone to suffer or die in misery, affliction, grief and depression. He will instead stay radically engaged with us as we go through these things and will deliver us and peel them off of us in due time and manner. Goes on in verse 16, and thou shalt consume all the people which Yehovah thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them, neither shalt thou serve their gods, for that will be a snare unto thee. Don't serve their gods. Don't go after other gods, because that will be a snare unto you. And that's what the Lord says. Remember, we're to be a light. Okay? We don't earn material blessings from Yehovah by Torah observance. The blessings are not intended as a reward on earth for being good or for doing good. To the contrary, the blessings are given for redemptive testimonial purposes. He causes blessings to follow those who shema and asar his Torah, simply because the people of the world need to see and long for the beauty of walking in fellowship with him. Amazingly though, even if people just legalistically followed the Torah, it would be life to them. The instructions of the Creator who knows all things are powerful. As it says in Galatians 3:11, I think JP mentioned it the other week. No man is justified by the Torah in the sight of God. It is evidence, for the just shall live by faith. And the Torah is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them. It's life. To follow his instructions is life. Some interpret Torah to teach that the pathway to blessing is through obedience, but Shema does not mean merely to obey, it means to totally surrender the will. Obedience is something one does because he has to, whether he wants to or not. One can obey even without any relationship, and can even obey while hating and desiring the death of the one being obeyed. That is one of the main differences between obeying and shemaing. One cannot shema without relationship. The shema is a covenant response. It is what covenant partners do. Obedience, on the other hand, is just doing what you're told. It's not a matter of obedience, it is a matter of a changed nature. It is a matter of covenant. It is a matter of relationship. It's why we were created. It is who we are. When you actually shema, it's not just like, oh, I'll do it then. It changes you. It completely and utterly changes you. Every single person here who has been hearkening to the voice of the living God has been changed. I know I have. Completely and radically, and I'm still being changed. It's amazing. We don't even really appreciate it happening sometimes. But I bet you if you could go back in time and have a look at yourself, you'd go, I remember JP saying, he stuck something on that he used to like. This was even ages ago, wasn't it? And he was going, oh, this is good. And we put it on, and he's watching it and going, this is terrible. Oh my God. It isn't. You don't even realise, but you're being transformed. Please note that we are never to focus on the blessings. We are always to focus on Yehovah. Otherwise we end up missing the whole point. We'll struggle to shema, which means to keep, and to asar, to do his words. This will in turn mean we will miss out on the blessings, which will lead to frustration. So if you think, I'll do this and I'll get dead blessed, and you just and you think, where's my stuff? I want stuff. And you're not getting your stuff. It's going to make actually being obedient quite difficult, because all you can think about is, where's my stuff? In disillusionment, we may find ourselves turning to anything but Yehovah. Perhaps the ear ticklers will start to seem appealing. The people who just tell you, oh, okay, it's only going to be great. Okay. Always stay focused on Yehovah. Keep your eyes fixed on him. In fact, knowing him is the greatest blessing of all anyway. If you draw near to Yehovah, he will draw near to you. He is the source of all life, and if you follow his instructions, it will be life to you. James 1 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. I always think of that, every good perfect gift comes from him. Everything. You could spend all day just saying thank you to the Lord, because every good thing, the things you take for granted, come from him. The other day I was saying thanks. And the things you'd end up saying thanks for, that you sometimes forget to say thanks for, it's just ridiculous. You could go on and on forever. Obvious ones like tea, bananas, things like that are obvious, but then you've got other things, like being able to go and have a pee. I know it sounds stupid, but these things that you just take for granted. The fact that you can jump in the air and go, whee! Some people can't do that. Every good and perfect gift. And the things that you think, your quality of life depend on, but you're not even aware of. And the Lord's just give you these things. You have the ability to think, to appreciate these things the Lord's just blessed you with and keeps blessing you with. And He opens your heart and He gives you even more. He changes you so that you can actually appreciate things even more. I love this verse as well in James 4:8. It says, draw nigh to God and He will draw nigh to you. Wow, that's a promise. That's in the Word of God. Do you want to be close to Him? Close, close, close. He says, well, come on, and I'll come near you. This is how you do it. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Walk in His ways. It says in verse 17, if thou say in thine heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? Thou shalt not be afraid of them, but thou shalt well remember what Jehovah thy God did unto Pharaoh and unto all Egypt. You could translate this as, if you're saying to yourself, oh dear, I've got some major problems going on in the world, how am I going to cope? It's all too much for me. Then Jehovah says to you, don't be scared. I ransomed you from bondage, from the hand of the one stronger than you, namely Hasatan. I've brought you over from death to life. Please dwell on what I've already done for you. Then consider if you think I will now abandon you or leave you to flounder. Think about what He's done for you. It says then, thou shalt not be afraid of them, but thou shalt well what? Remember. Remember. This is something that we forget to do. It's a good sentence, isn't it? Remember in Hebrew is zakar, and it means not passive recall. We've had all week, I've had a week of forgetting things, I forgot there was jam under the seat in my car. I forgot the bread that JP gave me. Things. Jocko left his bag in my car. He forgot to take his bag. Loads of forgetting going on. And I'm studying about remembering. Okay. Zakar means not passive recall, but active commemoration. It is to periodically celebrate something, like one's marriage vows on an anniversary or one's birth on a birthday. It can even mean to reenact. It means to bring the event being remembered to the forefront of your mind, to focus intently upon it, and to see it clearly and appreciate its significance. I actually did this on the way here in the car. I don't know why. It was just the most bizarre thing. I was driving and I just thought, you healed my liver. You gave me a new liver. I just thought about it. I thought, nobody could do that but you. No doctor. I couldn't do it. I was living healthy, but I couldn't make it go all better. You did it. You gave me a brand new liver. I thought, wow, how quickly we forget. How quickly. And it was a lovely thing to sit and remember. And it just made me realise, wow, you do. You truly love your people, don't you? You truly love me. Thank you. Without memory, it is impossible to have faith. Without memory, it is impossible to give or receive love. Without memory, it is impossible to overcome fear. Without memory, what good is a covenant? The serpent will try to eschew your memory. Remember his approach to Eve. He started it all by asking, did God truly say? He was testing whether she could recall not only Jehovah's actual instructions, but also their context and their essential meaning. Focus on His word and do not be led from it. Don't suffer from a selective memory, remembering what you want to and conveniently forgetting that which might hinder you from following your own will. People do, don't they? Do you remember the bits? Cherry pickers of the scripture. Oh, bless me and all this. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. They just blot it out. I was speaking to somebody yesterday and I was just thinking, everything. This is a person who I know has watched and heard lots of teachings. I was thinking, You did none of it. None of it went in, did it? None of you've forgotten everything. It was just as if it never happened. Talk about selective memory. I was quite baffled, and just like, wow, that's just incredible. The enemy will not want you remembering all the great things that Yehovah has done for you. But anytime you feel like you can't cope, just take a moment and zikar, focusedly, intently, remember all the victories that he's given you. Have a think about it. Just really, seriously, have a think about it. All the things that he's done. Focus on the journey so far and the many ways in which Yehovah has proved himself faithful to you. The little things and the big things, the things you're only now realising that he had his hand in. And he was with you all the way, even when you felt alone. To remember is a powerful thing. We forget, really, really, really quickly we forget. But we shouldn't forget. Please note, Yehovah is asking them to remember what he did to Pharaoh. That was 40 years ago. We sometimes forget what he did for us as recently as a month ago. Don't we? The Lord's saying, remember that thing I did. That was 40 years ago he's talking about. But he's saying, remember it. Draw strength from it. I remember things that happened in my childhood, and sometimes it's like, oh, it didn't happen because it was a long time ago. It did happen. And some of them things were incredible. I should remember them. And I should thank the Lord for them and draw strength from him. As well as the things that happened a month ago, a week ago, a day ago. Luke 22:19-20, he took bread and gave thanks, and he brake it and he gave to them, saying, this is my body which is given for you. Do this, what? In remembrance of me. Likewise also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is my New Testament in my blood which is shed for you. So in all you remembering, please remember what the Lord did for us. To remember is a very good thing. William Bullock Sr. says things to Zakar are the covenant Yehovah has made with our forefathers and with us, the wonders he has heretofore wrought on our behalf, the fact that he and not ourselves has produced whatever good things we have, and D, the fact that he has allowed whatever bad things are in our lives in order that he may, through them, teach and train us in the fear of heaven. Some of the things Yehovah told us to remember. He told us to remember the day in Egypt when we were sprinkled the blood of the lamb on our doorposts and the death angel passed over us. He told us to remember the Shabbat, to treasure, cherish and carefully guard its holiness. He told us to remember all the instructions of Torah every time we look at the tzitzit. He told us to remember that we were once slaves in Egypt but have been brought forth from bondage by his mighty hand and his outstretched arm. And he told us to remember the deliverance he wrought for us and how he crushed our enemies at the Sea of Reeds. These things we should be remembering. All the victories that we've had in our lives as well, personally, we should be remembering. And in chapter 8 we'll read that he tells us to remember how he led us through the wilderness, testing us and teaching us what it means to follow him. And that it is Yehovah who has given us the land and the ability to produce wealth. The mitzvot commemoration empowered us to put everything that happens in our lives into proper perspective. So when everything gets a bit, have a little sit down and have a little think. And remember all the things that the Lord's done for you. Remember all the things that he's done for your redemption. My word, to get you to pass from death to life. Just have a think about it. And it will all start to just, oh, okay. All the things that are crushing you won't. Do not let yourself forget that you were chosen to talk, dress, eat and live a lifestyle so different from the Egyptians and Canaanites that they would marvel at your God and desire to know him. When people look at us, they should see light. And they should think, wow, these people are truly blessed and truly different. And it should bring glory and honour to Yehovah. To forget, on the other hand, the etymology of it means to forget due to distraction or inattention. To forget Yehovah Elohim is to not keep his commandments. To forget is to follow other gods. To forget is to live in fear of harm and danger and live fretfully and timidly. To forget Yehovah is to live in rebellion. And there's the quote. Forgetting is often associated specifically with turning away from Torah. Proverbs 3:1. My son, do not forget my Torah, but let your heart keep my commands. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you from being priest for me. Because you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, I will also forget your children. Verse 19, it goes on, it says, the great temptations which thine eyes saw, the great trials, and the signs and the wonders and the mighty hand and the stretched out arm whereby the Lord thy God brought thee out. So shall the Lord thy God do unto all the people of whom thou art afraid. Moreover, the Lord thy God will send the hornet among them until they that are left and hide themselves from thee will be destroyed. Thou shalt not be affrighted at them, for the Lord thy God is among you, a mighty God and terrible. And the Lord thy God will put out those nations before thee little by little. Thou mayest not consume them at once, lest the beasts of the field increase upon thee. So little by little he puts out your enemies. Thou mayest not consume them at once, lest the beasts of the field increase upon thee. Seems that sometimes we don't get the victory all in one big swoop, and that might not please us to hear. But Yehovah knows what he's doing, and everything that he does is for our benefit. Why doesn't he just do, and why can't it just be like this? It's all for our benefit. We just have to be able to trust him. The Lord thy God shall deliver them unto thee, and shall destroy them at a mighty destruction. The Lord's amazing. Whatever your problem is, seriously, have a little think about these verses and what he promises to his people. Until they be destroyed, he shall deliver their kings into thine hand, and thou shalt destroy their name from under heaven. There shall be no man be able to stand before thee until they have destroyed them. The graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therein. For it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. But thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. Loads of people have got stuff like this, haven't they, in the gardens? The graven images of their gods shall you burn with fire. That's what the Lord says. Actually, you'd have to get a sledgehammer, wouldn't you, and smash it up. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house. Are you serious? These are the words of life. This is what the Lord's saying. If you want life, follow his instructions. Don't take dodgy stuff into your house. Chapter 8 says, all the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live, and multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. Don't ever forget, when we're reading through all this as well, that the promise of the land is for us as well. The Lord's promises to take us into this land, this place which is just unbelievable. He's promising to take us in as well. And thou shalt remember. See, this is an important part of being his child and walking in victory and having life. Being a light is remembering. All the way which Jehovah thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, that's to test thee, to know what is in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or not. So the Lord's saying, oh, tough times then, won't they? Tough times. I made them tough. I made them tough to humble thee, to test, to see what was in your heart. The test is to reveal what's in our hearts, and that revelation is made visible by whether or not we keep his commandments. Paul refers to the test in 2 Corinthians 2:9. For to this end I also wrote, that I might put you to the test, whether you are obedient in all things. That's the test. Whether when it gets tough and it's really dodgy and it's like, oh wow, whether you will be obedient in all things, and it's the Lord who sends the test. It's an opportunity. It's not, oh, tough times, it's poor me, woe is me. It's the Lord's testing me. This is an opportunity. I will be obedient in all things, Lord. Are you obedient in all things? What is in your heart? What will be revealed when Yehovah tests you? And he humbled thee, and he suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not. Neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. And this is what Yeshua quoted in Matthew 4 when he was tempted by Hasatan. Quoted this bit of scripture. So when he was going through a tough time, and he hadn't eaten in 40 days, and he was tested, what did he do? He was obedient in all things, and he relied on the word. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that, as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. You're not a victim of circumstances, you are instead a beneficiary of YHVH's discipline and training, all of which is being used for your good. So, when it gets a bit tough, just think, you know what? He loves me like a father loves his son. Okay. This is my opportunity to show him what's in my heart. And I will be obedient in all things. I remember some of the best blessings in my life. I remember sitting on a bench once, pretty crushed, really not having a good time, really low, just really bad. And looking up. And I can never forget it, the trees and the view and everything about it. And just looking up and just looking and going, you love me, Lord, don't you? That's all that matters. That's all that matters. And everything just went, and it was like I've been lifted up. It was an incredible feeling. I just thought, wow. And I realised it was all for my benefit. He is so good. Even when you think he's being rough with you, it's all for your benefit. He's just amazing. It says in verse 6, therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord thy God brings thee into a good land, a land of brooks, of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? A land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees. Why fig trees make me go? I don't know, but they do. And pomegranates, not so much pomegranates. Fig trees, definitely though. A land of olive oil and honey, a little minor, because I do love honey. And a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, and this will be proper bread, not the rubbish that falls to bits from the supermarket. Thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are of iron and whose hills thou mayst diggest brass. Compare this with the wilderness. The wilderness, look at that. There's a missing bit between the T and the H. Can't believe that got past the editing phase. The wilderness is a place of snakes, scorpions, and heat. Furthermore, it lacks the two things necessary for life, bread and water. The entire 40-year trip through the wilderness represented the victory of life over death. Israel was taken through the wilderness, a place of death, and they were to emerge 40 years later, resurrection, from death to life, as in the abundance of water and grain and bread in the land of Israel. Tony Robinson says this. This is a guy who studies all the thematics in the scriptures. The wilderness experience was intended to teach us about the work of Messiah Yeshua because of the sign of the Messiah, which is the deliverance from death in the wilderness, a place of death, unto life, the abundance of Eretz, Israel. And again, Romans 6:22-23. Now being made free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruit unto holiness, and the end, everlasting life. The wages of sin of death is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Yeshua HaMashiach, our Lord. It's all about life. Life. Good. And when thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. They look like they're having a good scran, don't they, there? Now, we're not to bless the food, we are to bless YHVH. We are not instructed to pause while still hungry to say grace before eating, asking YHVH to bless the human hands that prepared the food. We are instead instructed to pause after eating our fill and say a few words of thanks to YHVH. That's why we do it. And it always bugs me when you forget. Everyone does forget now and again, don't they? It's not just me, is it? I think, oh, I forgot again. Sorry, Lord. Because you think about it, if you're ever like fasting and stuff, and you don't appreciate how amazing food is, do you? It's just like, wow. Especially food that you like, and you just think, wow, this is brilliant. Really, it is. And you have to not eat for a good while to really fully appreciate what a blessing it is. Before thou forget not the Lord thy God in keeping his commandments and his judgments. Don't forget the Lord. How do you forget the Lord? By not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I command thee this day. Lest when thou hast eaten and art full and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, And when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Everything's going well, swimmingly beautifully. Look at me, I'm doing phenomenally fantastic. And suddenly, whoa, who's he? Who's Jehovah? Oh, seriously, this is what happens to people. The Lord's saying, don't forget me, don't forget me. Remember, it was me who brought you from death to life, who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein there were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of the flint, who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which the fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee, to do thee good at the latter end. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? And thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand have gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that gives thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Two things. The Lord is the one who gets you to get wealth, and he gives you the wealth because it's part of the covenant. It's a part of his purpose. I just think, wow, there's all these people, isn't there, who strive and strive and strive, and because they want to get wealth, and then they have to strive to keep it. It's nuts, isn't it? And the Lord's saying, hang on, I'm in charge of everything. What are you playing at? And just because people get a bit of stuff, they suddenly start thinking they're all, hey, get me. The Lord, just compare yourself, just remember who he is. Don't forget. How quickly people forget Yehovah when things are going well. Yet the moment the first big blip comes along, they're on their knees pleading and on the phone calling all their religious friends to pray for them. Either that or they're cursing God and reminding him that it's his job to sort out their mess. It's nuts, isn't it? Have you ever had that? People who are completely atheistic come and say, oh, Bobby's not well, you wouldn't say a prayer for him, would you? Why are you asking me to pray for somebody you don't believe in the Lord? Neither does that person. It's bizarre, isn't it? Suddenly, that's like when everything's gone wrong. Could you pray for him? Crazy. Right. I was studying this, and at the time I just kept thinking, I've got to read Job. So just compare this attitude with Job. Job 1:8. Jehovah said to Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that fears God and eschews evil. And 1:12-22. And Jehovah said to Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Jehovah, and there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were ploughing and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. That's bad enough in itself. That's rubbish. This is true as well. This happened. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I only am escaped to tell thee. Terrible. And then, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away, yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I am escaped to tell thee. Insane. And while he was yet speaking, there also came another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in thy eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and only I am escaped to tell thee. This all happened. You know, if you think you're having a rough time of it, just imagine that. First fella comes in, it's like, second fella, no. Third, no. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down on the ground. What did he do? He worshipped. Wow. He had his heart tested, and look what was in his heart. He worshipped. He said, naked came I from my mother's womb, naked shall I return thither. Yehovah gave and Yehovah hath taken away. Blessed be the name of Yehovah. That's unbelievable, isn't it? He recognized that it was the Lord who gave him all the stuff that he had. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Incredible. How quickly people forget Yehovah when things are going well. Thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand have got me this wealth. Moshe has prophesied over us, you will be blessed above all peoples. And much to our surprise, this blessedness factor will turn out to be Yehovah's greatest test of our character and our devotion to him. So, how are you handling the blessings in your life? He doesn't just give you tough times to test what is in your heart. It's also how you handle the blessings that he brings you. Thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that gives thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. If we truly love him, we will accept the blessings graciously, humbly and responsibly as the gifts of love they are. We will praise him and honour him before men for everything he has done, seeking no honour, glory or recognition on our own, and will use all the things with which he has blessed us in ways that advance his kingdom and promote his name. And again, Job, it just is ridiculous. Yehovah said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, and one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast as in integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered Yehovah and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath he will give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And Yehovah said unto Satan, behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of Yehovah, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot until his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil? In all this, did not Job sin with his lips? And I've just put a note there. Job is amazing. And note, he didn't call his wife a foolish woman. He just said she was speaking like one of them. You know, when you read Job, you realise people were just out of a different calibre then, weren't they? Rather than saying, oh, you stupid, he said, oh, you're talking like a stupid. See, you read Job and you just think, wow, they were just like, they spoke on a completely different level. To think all the things that happened to Job and this is response is just remarkable, isn't it? Maybe you're having it rough at the moment. Maybe Yehovah is testing you to see what is in your heart. Will you respond like Job and worship Yehovah? It's all about whether or not you trust him. Do you trust him? Romans 8:28 says, we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Do you believe that? Do you really believe that? Really, really? You can say you do. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's in the Bible. But do you really believe that? When it goes rubbish, when you have a Job experience, do you really believe it? Because if you do, you will respond like Job. You will worship the Lord. In troubles do you trust Yehovah? Remember it says that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee, test thee, to do thee good at the latter end. And let's have a look at what happens with Job. This is at the end, the latter end. And Yehovah turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also Yehovah gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came there unto him all his brethren and all his sisters and all that they had been of his acquaintance before, and did eat bread with him in his house, and they bemoaned him and comforted him over all the evil that Yehovah had brought upon him. Every man also gave him a piece of money, and every one an earring of gold. So Yehovah blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen and 1,000 she-asses. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he called the name of the first Jemimah, and the name of the second Kezer, and the name of the third Kerephanupuch. How do you say that? And in all the land there were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them inheritance among their brethren. And after this lived Job 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died, being old and full of days. The latter end was great, wasn't it? Perhaps Yehovah has blessed you. How will you deal with the blessings? Will you give him all the credit and use them for his glory? Or are you quick to forget and pick yourself up? Some people are, aren't they? And it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord thy God and walk after other gods and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. As the nations which Jehovah destroyeth before your face, so ye shall perish, because ye would not be obedient unto the voice of Jehovah your God. And that was said to the people on the plains, and Moshe was there and they were all listening, but it's also said to us today. If thou do at all forget the Lord thy God and walk after other gods, you'll perish. Don't walk after other gods. The God of entertainment, the God of money, the God of sex, the God of fame and celebrity, the God of science and technology, the God of self. There are so many gods in our day and age that people follow after. Don't forget the Lord thy God and walk after other gods. Don't forget him. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. The graven images of their gods ye shall burn with fire, neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. Graven images of their gods shall burn with fire. Don't bring it into your house, it's an abomination. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. Graven images of their gods ye shall burn with fire. Don't bring them in, they're an abomination. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. The graven images of their gods you shall burn with fire. You shall not bring an abomination into your house. Don't go following after other gods or you will perish. Remember the Lord your God. Focus intently on him. That's what it means to remember him. Remember all that he's done for you. Don't go getting big up yourself if he's blessed you. And also don't ever turn away from him if things are getting tough. That's your big opportunity to prove to him what's on your heart, that you will be obedient to him. Before we bring part 1 to a close, let's just read once more from the beginning of our parsha what happens if we actually hearken to the words of our Elohim. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if ye hearken to these judgments and keep and do them, that Jehovah thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he swore to thy fathers, and he will love thee. Wow. He will bless thee, and he will multiply thee. He will also bless thee the fruit of thy womb, and the fruit of thy land, and thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil, the increase of thy kind, the flocks of thy sheep, and the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. What would you value more than Jehovah loving you and blessing you and giving you an abundance of life? What would you put before loving him? John 10:10-11, the thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they may have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. Don't forget what he did to ransom us from death to life. Don't forget our God. Good shepherd gave his life for the sheep. Just think about that. That's how much he loves us. Let's give him all the glory and be a light in this dark world. And we do it by walking in all his ways. It's so simple and straightforward. And Moshe keeps saying it, and he keeps saying it, he keeps saying it. Because he wants us to get it. And ask yourself, what footprint do you leave, and how are people and places affected by you? Because if you're walking in the Torah, you're walking in all his ways, shemaring his word, and letting it transform you, then you're bringing glory to his name, and you're a light in a dark world. Amen. Hello, and welcome back. This is Eikev part 2. But I'll just explain. The reason why, when you're watching this video, this all looks completely different is because when I first did Eikev part 2, I got to right near the end and then realised I hadn't put the microphone on. So then I had to do it again. And then the battery died. Didn't know where the battery died. So I went right the way back to the beginning. And I did it again. And then I realised that bit, which is just the mic, which by my face was on my face, but I hadn't plugged the other end into the camera. So this is the 4th time I've been home and had my tea, and this is the 4th time I'm doing it. I hope this time it's okay. So, Eikev part 2. It looks a bit different because it's later. Okay, do. And we're going to start with a bit of loveliness. Lots and lots of loveliness. Aren't we just amazing? We are just so special. We are the best people ever. I am fabulous. You're fabulous. We're all fabulous. We're just on another level. We can't help it. We're just wonderful. I'm so glad we're us. It's just dreamy being here and soaking up how holy we all are and how magnificent it all is. There's never been anyone quite like us. Let's just sit and look at each other for a bit and let it sink in how supreme we are. You're wonderful, I know. We all get my lovely big thumbs up. Okay, now we get a bit of scripture. Romans 12:3. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith. Right, now we're going to jump into chapter 9, where it says this. Hear, O Israel, thou art to pass over Jordan this day to go in to possess nations greater and mightier than thyself, cities great and fenced up to heaven, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, who thou knowest and of whom thou hast heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Understand therefore this day that YHVH thy God is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out and destroy them quickly, as YHVH hath said unto thee. Big people. A people great and tall. Lest we ever forget the context of what's being said here and just read, oh yeah, the animal. Big people. Big people. This was the prospect that these Israelites were facing. Okay, and there's a diagram to give you an idea of the scale. These people were huge. So it was no little thing, but the Lord said, hang on, don't worry about it. It's fine, I'm with you. I'm with you. Same as what he says to us to this very day. And then it goes on to say, speak not in thine heart after that the Lord thy God hath cast them out from before thee, saying, for my righteousness the Lord hath brought me in to possess this land. No. But for the wickedness of these nations the Lord doth drive them out from before thee. Okay. So get a grip on yourself. Not for thy righteousness, or for the uprightness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which YHVH sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Moving on. Understand therefore that the Lord thy God give thee not this good land to possess it for thy righteousness, for thou art a stiff-necked people. Bang, right back down to earth. Remember and forget not. Okay, so this is the Lord saying, come on, be real. Forget not how thou provokest the Lord thy God to wrath in the wilderness from the day that thou didst depart out of the land of Egypt until ye came unto this place. You have been rebellious against the Lord. YHVH certainly doesn't want pride to be a part of who we are. He'd rather we had a reality check than that we go on in error, rather. And here we have a marvellous picture of a startled monkey. I think it's about time. I think we've had far too few startled monkeys in the parshas of place. So I hope this makes up for the lack. When his people began to think that they are spiritually superior to others and that they deserve to be in the land, Moshe suggests that they remember their own stubbornness and the unmerited favour being given to them. We might well to do a bit of remembering of our own, if we ever get a little bit a bit la-di-da. Please remember the following. This is a great bit of scripture, very important. Ephesians 2:1-9. And you hath he quickened who were dead in trespass and sins, where in time past, see, don't forget this, you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now works in the children of disobedience, among whom also we had our conversation in times past, in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. Don't forget. Sometimes we do forget, but it's good to remember. Not because we want to dwell in the horrible things we did, but to remember exactly what it is that the Lord has done and how he has transformed us, and that it is him that has done it. But God, who is rich in mercy for his great love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Christ. By grace you are saved, and hath raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace in his kindness towards us through Christ Yeshua. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and not that of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Important bit of scripture. So let's never get carried away with ourselves. A big part of this is remembering. Remember, that is Zakar focusing intently on the fact that Yehovah took us out of the house of bondage. He rescued us. We were lost and he saved us. I love that bit where Jonah says, I was in right stuck, death compassed me, and that's where we all were. We were in absolute stuck. He rescued us and he saved us. Occasionally, it was weird, it happened the other week. I actually remembered how lost I was and how desperate my situation was, and it just dawned on me what a gracious God it is that I serve, that he rescued me. He did take me out of real darkness. Don't be like this. Our race is the master race. We are divine gods on this planet. We are as different from the inferior races as they are from insects. Other races are beasts and animals, cattle at best. Our destiny is to rule over the inferior races. The masses will lick our feet and serve us as our slaves. That's Menachem Begin, the former Prime Minister of Israel. Really not the attitude to be having. Let's consider what the scriptures say. 2 Samuel 22:28, you will save the humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty, that you may bring them down. And Proverbs 6 says this in 16-19. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination to him. And it begins with a proud look. We might as well carry on reading. It says, a lying tongue and hands that shed innocent blood, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaks lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. And we'll have a little look a bit later on about when the Lord says, how lovely are your tents, and about the fact that dwelling in community is important. So you'll see how that would grieve the Lord, somebody that sows discord among brethren. But this is the one to whom I will look. This is the Lord, this is who he's after. He who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. Isaiah 66:2. Also in Horeb ye provoked Yehovah to wrath, so that Yehovah was angry with you to have destroyed you. Note, see, he's talking here to this is the generation that's going to go in to possess the land. But he's saying, you provoked the Lord to wrath. You did. Okay. He goes on then to recall the sin of the golden calf. Notice, none of them actually say, excuse me, Moshe, that wasn't us, that was the other lot. No, that's not the way it works. It brings home the importance of repenting for not only the sins of our generation, but also for the sins of our forefathers. Unless we get up ourselves, just think what could be levied against us. As we read earlier, Yehovah's name has been profaned amongst all the places where we have been scattered. So, Moshe looks at these people and says, "Woe, you lot." And then he talks about the golden calf incident. He looks at us lot. And Lord God could look at us and he could say, "Woe," and there's a myriad of things that he could bring up. I think we really have to start to understand the importance of repenting for the sins of our forefathers. We can't just pass it off as, "Oh, it wasn't us." Doesn't seem to work like that. Let's pick it up in verse 22. And the Taberah and Massah and Kibroth Hattaavah. And it is probably the 5th time I've said it today and I still can't say it. He provoked the Lord to wrath. At Taberah the people complained about the lack of meat. And Massah, also called Meribah, the people complained about lack of water. And in they lusted for meat. Verse 23. Likewise, when the Lord sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, "Go up and possess the land which I have given you," then you rebelled against the commandments of the Lord your God, and you believed him not, nor hearkened to his voice. You have been rebellious against the Lord from the day that I knew you. And Moshe is reminding these people, lest they get all full of themselves, of he's focusing on the 2 major sins, which is the golden calf and the sin of the spies. Also the fact that they were complaining all the time. I just think if we were ever to get up ourselves and the Lord wanted to put us in our places, how long would it be before we were absolutely cringing on the floor when he reminds us of things? It wouldn't be very long, would it? Now the chapter ends with Moshe interceding. I personally always love to hear the prayers recorded in Scripture. I particularly like Daniel 9. That prayer is amazing. But let's have let's just get an understanding of how Moshe goes about interceding on behalf of Israel, and how he prays. Thus I fell down before Yehovah 40 days and 40 nights as I fell down at the first, because Yehovah had said he would destroy you. I prayed therefore unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, destroy not thy people and thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed through thy greatness, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember thy servants Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Look not unto the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin. It's worth noting, really, isn't it, how he is addressing the Lord and how he's pleading with him. Lest the land whence thou broughtest out say, because the Lord was not able to bring them into the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he hath brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. Yet they are thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest out by thy mighty power and by thy stretched out arm. Now we're going to skip ahead to Devarim 10:10. And we have to see what's going on here. This is Moshe says, I have stayed in the mount according to the first time, 40 days and 40 nights, and Yehovah hearkened unto me at that time also, and Yehovah would not destroy thee. Imagine it, 80 days totally immersed in the presence of Yehovah. Remarkable. And in my strange imaginings, I was imagining what it'd be like bimbling about in ancient, when they're with Moshe about and the Israelites all bimbling about and walking about by your tent or whatever and then bumping into him and stuff, and wondering what an impact it would be to have met a man who actually was so intimate with the Lord. I should imagine he was quite a remarkable person to be around. But have your own imaginings, I don't know, off in your own little dream. Verse 11 says, And Yehovah said unto me, Arise, take thy journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land which I swear unto their fathers to give unto them. Remember before we talked about the Abrahamic covenant and the 2 things that was promised was seed and a land. And this is talking now all about going in to possess the land. We've looked at the fact that on the heels of Abraham hearkening to the Lord, with regards to Isaac, since the seed was blessed. And now, Eikev, on the heels of hearkening to the Lord, these people are going to go in and possess the land, so the seed and the land come into play. And this is a great bit of scripture, this, and I've put question marks so you can have a little think. And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? And I've stopped it there, so you can sit and ponder and see what you come up with in your own head. What does the Lord require of you? A little think about it. If you've got a pen, chew the end of the pen. I don't know. If you've got a beard, you can scratch the end of your beard and have a think. That's what people do. But if you've had a good think, and you think you know, we'll have the answers on a postcard. Thank you very much. But perhaps we should just read it, yeah. It says, and now Israel, what does the Lord require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I command thee this day, for thy good. So there we've got it. It's dead straightforward, it's dead simple. What does the Lord require of you? It's all written down for us plain. Fear the Lord thy God, walk in all his ways, and love him. Serve the Lord God how? With all your heart and with all your soul. Keep the commandments. Keep, we know what that is. It's to guard over the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I command thee this day for thy good. Remarkable. Now, let's compare this with what Micah says. Please note the picture depicting yet another episode where a prophet of the Lord is being received really well by the people. Oh yes, please tell us some more truth. Goes on all the time in the scriptures, doesn't it? Now, let's see what he's got to say on the same subject. Micah 6:6-8. Wherewithal shall I come before Jehovah and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will Jehovah be pleased with thousands of rams or with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth Jehovah require of thee, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God is what the Lord says he requires. Now, being fair is no good without mercy and kindness. And walking with Jehovah is no good if you do it any other way than humbly. And that means submitting to him. Moshe is described as being the most humble man on the earth, and that's not because he went round saying to everyone, I'm rubbish and you're brilliant. It's because he bowed the knee to the Lord. Now the two are effectively saying the same thing. We talked about the fact that to shema the word of the Lord, to hearken to his voice, causes us to be completely transformed. And when we walk in his ways, we become like him. And he is just, and he loves mercy. Let's read it. Now Israel, what doth Jehovah thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways? You cannot help but to become a person who does justly and loves mercy when you walk in the ways of the Lord, as described in his Torah, which is his heart. To love him and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. To keep the commandments of Jehovah and his statutes which I command thee this day for thy good. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth Jehovah require of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy. You cannot help but to do justly and love mercy when you walk in his ways. And then it says, and to walk humbly with thy God. How do you do that? By keeping the commandments of the Lord, his statutes. Now, let's have a look at the differences. Micah is talking about what Jehovah demands of you. It's a strong word. The word in Hebrew is darash. What he demands of you. And it's directed at man. Oh man, this is what the Lord demands of you. And it is focused more on being good to others. It begins with what is good, which is tov. Moshe, he's talking about what Jehovah is asking of you. And it's more gentle. It's the Hebrew word sha'al. and it's directed at Israel. This is centered on loving Yehovah, and it ends with saying, for your good, Tov. So there's a difference. More differences. Micah says, this is what is good. From a man, Yehovah demands that he loves fairness and mercy and walk humbly with him. Moshe is different. Just like me. For your good, for Israel, his bride, Yehovah asks for his love to be requited. This time he gently asks. And if you read what Moshe is saying, it's all about love me, serve me with all your heart. There's a difference. Now, let's go back and see the context of what Micah is saying. Micah 6, 2-8. Hear ye, O mountains, Yehovah's controversy, and ye strong foundations of the earth. For Yehovah hath a controversy with his people, and he will plead with Israel. O my people, what have I done to thee? And wherein have I wearied thee? Testify against me. What's going on? Why are you so apathetic towards me? Why are you so tired of me? Why have I become a burden? For I brought thee up out of the land of Egypt, and redeemed thee out of the house of servants, and I sent before thee Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. So Yehovah asks why the people have lost their passion towards him, why he's become a burden to them, and he reminds them of what he's done for them in bringing them forth from Egypt. And then, of all things that he can mention, and he can mention lots and lots of things, but of all the things he mentions Balak and Balaam in verse 5, he says, O my people, remember now what Balak king of Moab consulted, and what Balaam the son of Beor answered him from Shittim unto Gilgal, that ye may know the righteousness of Yehovah. What a strange thing to mention the episode of Balak and Balaam. And then it continues, wherewith shall I come before Yehovah and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Or is it such a strange thing to mention? In the episode of Balak and Balaam, Balak asked Balaam, as we know, to curse Israel. Can't do it. The king says, let's have more offerings, let's burn more, let's make more sacrifices. Wherewith shall I come before Yehovah and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Verse 7, another picture depicting the religious hoo-ha that went on with Balak and Balaam. Verse 7, will Yehovah be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Here, Micah is describing exactly how not to draw near to Yehovah if you've lost your way. 1 Samuel 15:22, we have Samuel rebuking Saul. Samuel said, hath Yehovah his great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Yehovah? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Interesting that when Balaam couldn't curse Israel, Balak called for more and more altars and more offerings, obviously thinking maybe you could bribe Yehovah. And these extra offerings, of course, they had no effect. And Balaam, instead, he blesses Israel. This is not the way to draw near to the Lord. Verse 8. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good. The expression in the Hebrew is matov. And what doth Yehovah require of thee? But to do justly and to love mercy, to walk humbly with thy God. Now it's interesting that matov, this expression, is actually found somewhere else in the Torah. Would it surprise us to realize? It's when Balaam tries to curse Israel and he's unable to do so. Let's read in Numbers 24. It says, and when Balaam saw that it pleased Yehovah to bless Israel, he went not, as at other times, to seek for enchantments, but he set his face toward the wilderness. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel abiding in his tents according to their tribes, and the Spirit of God came upon him. And he took up his parable, and he said, Balaam the son of Beor had said, and the man whose eyes are open hath said, he hath said, which heard the words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, having his eyes open. How goodly, ma tov, are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. How interesting that we've got in this story here, we've got all these offerings and all these sacrifices going on. And yet, you can't curse Israel. And he actually looks down under the influence of the Ruach HaKodesh. He looks at Israel and he says, Ma tov. This is what is good. This is what is good. So there's a link between these two episodes. Micah talking about returning to what Yehovah calls good. He says, "O man, what is good? Ma tov. And what doth Yehovah require of thee? But to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God." Compared with when Yehovah saw that Israel was good and that they could not be cursed. How goodly, ma tov, are thy tents. Oh man, what is good? And then we have the Lord's explaining it in this situation in Numbers 24. How goodly, ma tov, are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. There's a link between the two. So what is the fundamental goodness of Israel that made Yehovah unwilling to curse them and rather to bless them? What is tov to Yehovah? Is their tents and their dwelling places, which speaks all about their sense of community. So being just, love and mercy and walking humbly with Yehovah is tov, and we see it related to how we dwell with each other as a community. How lovely are our tents, ma tov. Are we doing that which Yehovah demands of man? If we have lost our passion for him and we do not focus all our attention into loving him as a bride should, as Israel should, then the way back for his people is not through offerings, religious gymnastics. It is through dwelling with each other with fairness and mercy and learning to walk with him with our heads bowed, humbly. And this leads us to loving him as he asks to be loved by his bride, by Israel. Devarim 10, 12 to 13. Which is thus, now Israel, this is the Lord asking now. What doth the Lord require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to love him, to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I command thee this day for thy good. Because all I ever want for you is what is good. This is not a religious thing, by the way. This is a heart thing. Now, regarding having lovely tents, 1 Peter 4, 7 to 10. The end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves. And in this fellowship, we really are blessed. People are just really kind and generous. Even today, people came in and he made like an apple pie, and I don't have sugar just because I just don't. But they made one with special unrefined sugar so that I can have it. How nice is that? But I think the Lord looks down and he sees things like this, kindness and charity to each other. I think that's when he looks down and he says, "Wow, how lovely are your sins." And I think it's a really good thing. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Help one another. Colossians 3, 12 to 17. Put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another and forgiving one another. Bound to get on each other's nerves from time to time. Forgive one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. And above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also ye are called in one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. Help each other, encourage one another. And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Yeshua, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. And John 13:35 says this, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. Part of being a light is loving each other. Now, I was going to put lots of quotes in from 1 John chapter 1 and chapter 2, and I thought, no, what I'll do instead is I'll just encourage everybody who watches this to go and read, either at the end or pause this now. We'll go and read 1 John chapter 1 and chapter 2. It will benefit you greatly. And it did myself when I was just like, wow, this is great. But rather than put all them verses in, just go and read them for yourself. I hope YHVH looks down on us and he thinks that we have lovely tents and that we walk in fairness and mercy and that we're not stiff-necked, but humble in our walk with him, humble also to those we meet. And I hope he sees a people loving him as he has to be loved by a bride. Philippians 2:3 says this, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. This is the attitude we're supposed to have. We are to be a light. People are to look at our lovely tents and glorify YHVH. Philippians 2:14-15, do all things without murmurings and disputings, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. Verse 14 says, behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens is YHVH thy God, the earth also with all that therein is. If ever we doubt or we don't trust in the Lord, just get a grip of verse 14. The heaven and the heaven of heavens is the Lord thy God's, and the earth also with all that therein is. And there's nothing impossible to our God. Only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. Please bear in mind that he chose their seed after them. If you are Christ, and you are Abraham's seed, you know that. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart. Don't be stiff-necked. Foreskin in Hebrew is all that it means, blockage. So what it's saying is remove from your heart that of the flesh which causes a blockage, that which causes you to not fully surrender to YHVH in love. Proverbs 3:5-7. Trust in YHVH with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear YHVH and depart from evil. Trust in YHVH with all thine heart. You don't want no blockages. You don't want a hardened or a calloused heart. Now we've got a quote from Jeremiah. There's another prophet, by the way, who's being loved by the people who are all thinking to themselves, isn't it marvellous when the truth gets spoken to us? Oh, how we love these prophets. Now, but in Jeremiah 29 it says this, you shall seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart. Ephesians 4:17-19 says this, now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, due to their hardness of heart. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, all that is of the flesh, all the stuff that we should strip away that we do not want, and have given themselves to sensuality, greatly to practice every kind of impurity. And I think it's sad, but the Gentiles, what do? They walk in the futility of their minds, and sometimes I look at people and I think, wow. And the word futility does seem so apt. And it saddens me, and I just think, wow. But then at the same time, it makes me extremely thankful, because I think, thank you, Lord, that it is not the way it is for me. Thank you, Lord, that you've opened my eyes and my ears, and you've called me into the light, not to walk in the darkness anymore. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons nor taketh reward. So he won't be bribed, and he won't respond either to great religious demonstrations. But check it out. The Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords. He's a great God, and he's mighty. And I think sometimes we just lose track of that. We don't get a grip of it at all. Just think about it. Your God is the God of gods, and he is the Lord of lords. That is who you serve. That is the one who says, I go before you. And he doth execute the judgment of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger in giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger. Ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Yehovah has a real heart for all those who are vulnerable. He loves the stranger. So you should love the stranger, because when you walk in his ways, you become like him. He loves the stranger, so you should. Now, do you? Ask yourself, do you? If you're walking in his ways, I guarantee you that your heart is being changed. I wonder what Yehovah thinks when he sees all the poor in the world that are uncared for. What do you see when you see them? Next week's Torah portion is Israel, and it's all about seeing things through the Lord's eyes. And after you've been walking in his ways for quite some time, you start to see things differently. You start to see things as he sees them. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God. Him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave and swear by his name. Serve the Lord. Avad Adonai. Doing only those things Yehovah specifically allocates to us the responsibility to do. There is a big difference between being a do-gooder or social reformer or philanthropist and serving Yehovah. Please note, Yehovah is not our servant required to bless whatever we do. We are his servant required to do whatever he tells us, and nothing else whatever. No good getting a big fancy pants idea in your head and thinking, I'm going to go off, I'm going to start a ministry. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do hula hoops for Jesus, or whatever. I don't know what it might be. Pop socks, and I don't know. Don't even think about it. You don't come up with something and then pray about it and expect the Lord to bless it. You surrender to him, you bow the knee to him, and you do what it is that he asks you to do. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, and shalt serve him, and thou shalt cleave. To him you shall cleave. That's the same word used in Genesis 2:24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. And we're to cleave to the Lord. We're to have that intimacy that is between a man and a wife. William Bullock Sr. says about the bridegroom is calling for the bride. He writes, Yehovah does not demand from us great exploits. What he wants is for us to spend the time, energy and passion necessary to get to know him intimately. He wants us to be humble and teachable enough to understand and appreciate his revealed pattern of righteousness. He wants us to voluntarily yield our wills, our minds, our emotions, our words and our actions to his will and to our ways. He's so gentle with us, isn't he? And he's so loving. And all the language, it's all language of love, and his intense desire to have that relationship and intimacy with us. And he goes on, William Bullock, he says, what Yehovah really wants from us is not good doctrine, neither is it lip service, neither is it mechanical following of tradition or some religion's halakha. What our covenant partner really wants from us is not even about what most people, especially in religious circles, think of as ministry. What he wants from us instead is intimate communion, sweet bridal surrender, and wholehearted embracing of a lifestyle of 24/7, 365 divine apprenticeship. Amen. Now, for those who are watching this online, it will all change. as it's edited to a new thing, and it will all go different. Well, don't be freaked out. Please stay with it. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the parsha. So, I've only just realised that I didn't have this on. I thought my head felt a bit light. Quite okay. What? What Yehovah really wants from us is not good doctrine, neither it is lip service, neither is it mechanical following of tradition or some religion's halakha. What our covenant partner really wants from us is not about what most people, especially in religious circles, think of as ministry. What he wants from us instead is intimate communion, sweet bridal surrender and wholehearted embracing of a lifestyle of 24/7, 365 divine apprenticeship. We simply cannot truly love Yehovah our God and still say or even think, not your will, but mine. We cannot love him with bridal love and still think and live our lives as if we are better qualified to judge between right and wrong, good and evil, wise and foolish than he is. And then we've got this phrase, to love him. Ahava Oto has nothing to do with how he makes you feel. Ahava Oto is about joyfully surrendering to his every desire and choosing his will over yours every time, as modelled for us by Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave and swear by his name. Solomon, in his great wisdom, in Ecclesiastes 12:13 says this, let's see the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. JP said the other day, we both know somebody who teaches that, don't fear God anymore, don't fear him anymore. It's like, okay. Might be a bit of a problem. He is thy praise and he is thy God, that have done for thee these great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. Thy fathers went down into Egypt with 70 persons, and now Yehovah thy God hath made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. Chapter 11 says, therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God and keep his charge and his statutes and his judgments and his commandments always. So note the linkage. Moshe insists that loving Yehovah cannot be separated from keeping his instructions for living. He goes on to say, and know ye this day, for I speak not with your children which have not known and which have not seen the chastisement of Yehovah your God, his greatness, his mighty hand and his stretched out arm, and his miracles and his acts which he did in the midst of Egypt unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt and unto all his land. And what he did unto the army of Egypt, unto their horses, and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them as they pursued after you, and how the Lord hath destroyed them unto this day, and what he did unto you in the wilderness until you came into this place, and what he did unto Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, how the earth opened their mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great acts of Yehovah which he did. Therefore shall ye keep the commandments which I command you this day, that ye may be strong, and go in and possess the land whither you go to possess it, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and with honey. 1 Corinthians 10:11 says, these things that happened to them serving as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. So, Moshe is speaking to the people that are before him, that are just about to cross the Jordan, but certainly he's also speaking to us, as we too know of what Yehovah has performed. We are well aware of the chastisement of the Lord our God, his greatness, his mighty hand and his stretched out arm, and his miracles and his acts, how he delivers his people from bondage. We should act accordingly, and we should fear Yehovah. It says in verse 10, for the land whither thou goest in to possess is not as the land of Egypt from whence ye came out, where thou sowest thy seed, and waterest it with thy foot as a garden of herbs. Waterest with thy foot? What is going on? Okay. This refers to the irrigation system that was developed by Egypt by digging ditches from the Nile to their fields. Using this system, an Egyptian could irrigate his field by simply using his foot to kick away the dirt which was blocking the flow of water. Similarly, he could also shut off the flow by using his foot to kick the dirt back into the ditch. In contrast to Egypt, this is how the Torah describes the land of Israel. The land whither ye go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinks water of the rain of heaven. None of that going on for the Israelites. Israel's precarious dependence on rain from heaven for its water supply made it harder to fall into the error of believing that they single-handedly were in control of their own livelihood. Instead, they were forced to depend on Yehovah. Goes on to say, a land which Yehovah thy God careth for, the eyes of Yehovah thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn, thy wine, and thine oil. The Living Waters commentary says this: the rainfall and everything else in Israel is subject to Yehovah's direct supervision in every detail. The purpose of being in the land of Israel is to live in a state of closeness with the Almighty, understanding that in everything we do in this world we are partners with him. Our efforts can only succeed if they align with his will expressed to us through his Torah. We have already read of a dangerous attitude, which is when you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand has gathered me this wealth. Note that it was the people as a whole who were blessed or judged. A faithful individual could still find himself in a drought situation if the nation went astray. I always do feel sorry for the prophets, It all went rubbish and they're like dead righteous. Where do you think you'd like to live? If you're looking for a secure lifestyle and would like to be responsible for your own success, Egypt or this world will be your choice. If you are striving for a closer relationship with Yehovah, then you will long for the land of Israel. Not only that, but living in community there with other Torah keepers. The Living Waters commentary says this: Israel does have the river Jordan, but it was not able to be used in the same way as the Nile, however, because it is located hundreds of feet below sea level. They couldn't dig ditches for their fields for irrigation. And today, as a result of their own strength, the Israelis have been able to solve their water problem by pumping up the water from the Sea of Galilee. Mythbusters. Mythbusters. Okay. Myth. Yehovah has blessed the modern state of Israel because we see the desert blossom. It's a myth. Okay. Leviticus 26, 3-8. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield their increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Your threshing shall reach unto the vintage, and the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time. Shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land in safety. Promises of the Lord. He doesn't add, but you might need to spend lots of money and put lots of effort into making the land produce. If you're not for real but want to appear to be, even though you walk in total disobedience. So what am I talking about? Yehovah speaks of the desert blooming when his people return, and that's because they return when they make teshuvah and walk in all of his ways. Isaiah 35:1, the wilderness and the wasteland shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. Shall blossom abundantly and rejoice, even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the excellence of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of Yehovah, the excellency of our Elohim. For waters shall burst forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. That's not what's going on though, is it? Yehovah's people return when they turn to him in repentance and make teshuvah. Deuteronomy 30 says, when all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind among the nations where Yehovah your God has driven you, when you remember, and then you return to Yehovah your God, return to teshuvah, that means to make repentance. You and your children, and obey Shema his voice in all that I command you today with all your heart and with all your soul. Then Yehovah your God will restore your fortunes and have mercy on you, and he will gather you again from all the peoples where YHVH, your God, has scattered you. If you're outcasted in the uttermost parts of heaven, from there YHVH, your God, will gather you, and from there he will take you. And YHVH, your God, will bring you into the land that your fathers possessed, that you may possess it. And he will make you more prosperous and numerous than your fathers. And YHVH, your God, will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring, so that you will love YHVH, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. So the Lord in the scripture always talks about his people returning when they turn to him in full repentance, when they make teshuvah and they follow him with all their heart, when they remember and go, oh. It also says that when his people return, life, everywhere, life, abundance of life.
So are you saying that they will do all of the things written in Deuteronomy and not just in the Melchizedek covenant?
Definitely saying that, yeah. They will do all the things in Deuteronomy, all the things in all of the Torah. Advanced agriculture is a tool against desertification by Dr. Dov Siton from the Applied Research Institute of the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. This is like an Israeli university. So let's see if the return of the Lord's people, as it's supposed to be, the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, has been accompanied with what the Lord talks about, this great abundance of life and rain and everything. October 2000, from the very inception of modern Israel, settling in the deserts and turning it into farming land was considered a matter of national priority. First by trial and error, and later on through research and development. This is nuts, isn't it? Not the Lord made the land bloom and it was marvellous. Isn't it amazing the miracle he's performed? No, first by trial and error, and later on through research and development, agricultural know-how was incorporated into practice and became a highly useful tool for turning the deserts into productive and habitable land. Although the state of Israel borders the Mediterranean Sea, its climate is profoundly affected by the proximity of vast tracts of desert to the south and east. Precipitation is limited to the winter season, which extends essentially from November to March. Annual rainfall averages between 400 and 800 millimetres in the north and west of the country, and it declines sharply towards the south and east, dropping almost to zero. Thus most of the area of Israel is characterised by semi-arid and arid conditions. That isn't what the Lord said it was going to be like. That's not it. About 60% of the country is classed as arid and needs to be irrigated all year. What? This isn't it. To sustain agriculture, and even where precipitation is relatively high in the northern and western parts, summer crops require irrigation between April and October. Crazy. To conserve and protect Israel's water resources, currently exploited almost to the limit, several measures have been taken by the Water Commission. Allocation of water quotas. Each sector is assigned an annual quota of water. The policy of allocation depends on the water balance, which may vary from one year to the next. Institution of sliding price scales varying according to sector. The individual consumer, be the farmer or city dweller, pays a higher price for water consumed beyond the allocated quantity. Nuts. This isn't what the scriptures talks about, does it? You get given an allocated quantity of water, where all the land needs to be watered by irrigation. YHVH promises to send rain and to make the land produce in great abundance, because he will choose to bless it. If you have to go to such great lengths to get the land of Israel to produce them, by my reckoning, you've just identified yourselves as a counterfeit. If there is such a need for irrigation and techniques that were not even known until recently, and how does this compare to what Israel was like when the people truly relied on YHVH and not technology, and were blessed? I imagine it must have rained a great deal more for a start. And you see that this is a myth, that Israel has blossomed as according to scriptural prophecy. It's a complete myth. A new modified drip irrigation system has recently been developed for small-time farmers, known as the family drip system or the gravitation drip system. It is designed for use where both the water supply and the financial means are very limited. I do not think there'll be any of these knocking about in the millennium. Seriously, don't think there'll be any. I don't think we'll be going, have you got your family drip system sorted yet? I just don't think it's going to happen. Honestly, I won't be sitting under my fig tree going, thank goodness for me, family drip system, thank goodness. No. Lack of rain has always been a sign of Yehovah's displeasure. Jeremiah 3:3. Therefore the showers have been withholden, and there hath been no latter rain, and thou hast a hoarse forehead, thou refusest to be ashamed. Isaiah 5:6. I will lay it to waste, it shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain, no rain upon it. So let's get back to talking about life. Real life. I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou may eatest and be full. So when does all this come to pass, all this life and all this abundance? It shall come to pass if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day. Wow. What was that about Melchizedek? To love Yehovah your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Take heed to yourselves that your heart not be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then Yehovah's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, unless ye perish quickly from off the good land which Yehovah giveth you. Don't go taking dodgy stuff into your home. Graven images of gods burn with fire. Sledgehammer if necessary. Don't bring abomination into your house. Don't do it. Don't take abomination, dodgy stuff in your house. Don't do it. Just don't take it in your house. Don't bring an abomination into your house. Burn it with fire. You can burn that with fire, can't you? And back to how lovely are your tents. We're coming to a close. Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand. In other words, they affect what you do, and be as frontlets between your eyes, what you think. You shall teach them to your children. Why was Abraham chosen? Because he was going to teach the ways of the Lord to his children. Speaking of them, when thou do what? When you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you get up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thine house and upon thy gates, and you will have a lovely tent. Now, it's all about life, and life abundant. The Lord says, do these things that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which Yehovah sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. For if you shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you, to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave to him. Cleave to him, like passionately, to love him, in the same way that a man and a wife are bound together. Yehovah defines loving him as total absorption in the mitzvot, mishpatim, and hukot of Torah. His commandments, his judgments, and his statutes. We ought to be obsessed about him and about his Torah. Be besotted with him, and besotted with his Torah. And what our passionate obsession with the Torah does is to make us love him more. Torah is his heart. And that, it really is the biggest joke of all, when people say, oh yeah, you're just all about the Torah, aren't you? And yeah, but we love the Lord, and we've just got, we walk in the Spirit, and we've got that freedom, and yeah, I just love Jesus. I think, wow. It's only since I've been walking in the Torah, studying it, that I've realised truly who he is. I just love him, like, wow. It just grows and grows and grows. People really have no idea what they're missing out on. No idea at all. It says then in verse 23, then Yehovah will drive out all these nations from before you, and you shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. Every place whereupon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours, from the wilderness in Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost sea shall your coast be. There shall no man be able to stand before you, for Yehovah your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that ye shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. So, in closing, to hearken to Yehovah means to walk in victory, giving him all the glory. It means to trust in him for all your wealth. It means to dwell in lovely tents. It means to love one another and be a light in a dark world. It means life and life abundant. It means to love him, to cleave to him and follow him wherever he leads. It means he is your Elohim and your praise. It means not to forget, but remember all that he has done for you. It means to walk humbly, his will not yours. It means all your heart, all your soul and all your might. And it means using all the blessings he has given you for his purposes. It means trusting and worshipping him even when everything goes wrong. It means being thankful and having your heart burst with love for him. And it means life. To hearken to YHVH means knowing him. As that song goes, to know him is to love him. Should we pray?